Today I'll be tying an Olive Perdigon. This is one of my favorite Perdigon nymphs that I use when I Euro nymph. For the hook, we'll use a Daiichi 1120 size 14. And for the bead, a plummeting tungsten stone. It's a 3.3 millimeter bead. And it's a metallic light pink. I've already put the bead on the hook, so let's start. For the thread, I'm using Olive Vivus body quill. BQ5 is their number. I used to use thread in order to attach the tail, and then I would switch over to Vivus body quill. But after tying a lot of these, I find that the Vivus body quill, just using that for the thread, works just as well. So I've attached it. For the tail, I'll use some Coq de Leon fibers, pulled from one. I've got one started already that I've been selecting tail fibers from. I'm going to pull the fibers directly away from the stem, and by doing so it will align the tips. And I'll use 6 or 8 fibers, hold on to the tips. Once they're aligned, pull the feather away, and the remaining will all be aligned. I used a pinch wrap. I'll continue to hold up on the Coq de Leon fibers and wrap down around the bend of the hook. And back up with touching turns. I want to keep the body a very slim profile. Once I'm back to where my tie-in point, I'll trim the butt ends of the hackle and continue up into the bead in the opening. We'll fill that somewhat. As I create my taper, I'm going to continue back down with touching turns, but I'm not going to go all the way. So just go a portion of the way, come back up, we'll go to the bead again. Every time I make a turn, it puts a wrap in the thread or the body quill, so I just went the opposite direction to try to flatten it out somewhat. I'll continue to build my taper. This time I'm only going to go down about halfway and then back up. This will create a small taper, which is what I want for the Perdigon nymphs. I'll use a couple of hitches to secure the fibers, the body quill materials temporarily. And for the thorax area, we'll use body quill for that as well. This is a fluorescent pink. BQ12 is the number. I'll attach it right behind the bead. Make 4 or 5 wraps to secure. Now for the thorax, I only want to go down to about this point. I'll try to keep it level and then continue to build somewhat of a taper into the opening of the bead. And you'll know when you have enough material, and you can stop when the bead doesn't move anymore. So you notice that the bead is twisting somewhat. So I'll make sure that I don't go too far down, but I'm just going to go back and forth slightly in order to create a firm foundation. And we're about there. I'll check my bead, it seems secure. I'll flatten my body quill somewhat, and we'll whip finish. At times, if you have a severe angle and you make a whip finish with this material, it has a tendency to jump down. So just be careful, make sure you've got a good base, and you can have a very nice small hot spot that you've created with that fluorescent pink. I'll be using Solarez, the bone dry. It's a UV material, UV resin. And this has a brush on it, which I really like. So we'll attach a little bit, add some to the hook. You can see with the brush that it just makes it very nice. You might notice that there's a little more on one side than the other, but if you rotate, it will make sure that it goes all over. We'll use a UV torch to set the UV. Set the UV resin. It won't take too long. That should do it. It should be hard. And then for the thorax area, or on top, I want to put just a little bud, a black bud. This happens to be a product from Gulf, and it's Black Magic. This is kind of the wing bud of a nymph then. And I'm going to put my hand next to the vise in order to steady and squeeze just a drop on top of the bead and the thorax area. Takes a minute for the resin to flow down. Here it comes. And I'll just put it down just on the body and on top of the bead. Let it go and wait for gravity to take over. And we will use the UV torch again in order to set this. And I'll turn off my tying lights, and you'll be able to see how the UV light makes this material glow. You'll understand why I've used the bead. You can see how that glows along with the pink, the fluorescent pink hot spot for the thorax. So this has been a really effective fly when I choose to pull out my Euro nymph rod. It's very effective. It goes along with the pheasant tail Perdigon nymph that I've also demonstrated on my RiverKeeper Flies YouTube channel. And the third one that I like is the Rainbow Warrior Perdigon. And that will be on my YouTube channel as well. So I hope you've liked this video. If you do, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'll include the fly pattern sheet, which is linked to my RiverKeeper Fly website with directions on how to tie it and the materials that I've used.